Daniel Bear,
Present.
Diane Bailey,
Present.
Stephen Booker,
Present.
Michael Lawson,
Present.
Kathleen Goforth,
Present.
Mary Kimberly, Aurelio Pizar, Gail Lee,
Present.
thank you, Margaret Lee, Jason Mendelson,
Present.
Sarah Schaff,
Present.
Desiree Bear,
Present.
Robert Whitehair.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I would like to ask if there are any comments, public comments about our agenda for this evening before we get started. Are you seeing any, Vanessa?
So if you're joining online and would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. You can raise your hand by going to the participants tab and clicking raise hand. I'm not seeing any.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right. So our first order of business is the chair report tonight, and I don't have anything that I really want to convey because we have a. Oh, I'm sorry. Hello. Thank you, Jason. Gosh, what would I do without you? Our first order of business actually is to approve the minutes and the consent agenda. Forgive me. I jumped down too quickly. Do I have any motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you, Stephen and Diane. All right. Guess we need to take a roll call for that.
Daniel Bearwall,
Approve.
Diane Bailey,
Approve.
Stephen Booker, Michael Clausen,
Approved.
Kathleen Goforth,
Approve.
Mary Kimberly, Aurelio Pizar, Gail Lee,
Approved.
Margaret Lee, Jason Mendelson,
Approved.
Cheryl Schaff,
Approve.
Desiree Thayer, approved, Robert Whitehair.
Approved.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, let me just ask one more time, because not everyone was in here. If there's any public comment, we already did that. Wait, it's too late. All right. So we'll move on to the chair report, and I don't have anything to say to you except for please jump in if we haven't heard from you, or if you have an idea, don't hesitate to share what's on your mind. We just want everybody to feel very comfortable contributing to all of our discussions. Our next item of business is our first presentation of the evening, which is a recommendation on program design and implementation of the turnkey home electrification service. It's going to be handled by Alejandra.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. Alejandra.
This is on if it's green?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Well, hi, everyone. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Alejandra Posada. I'm one of the program managers in the programs team. I work on our building electrification residential programs. So I'll be talking about here, like our turnkey installation service, specifically as it relates to a contract that we will be going to the board and the executive committee with this month. So, and also how that fits into the bigger picture and our thinking around building electrification, specifically in the residential sector, single family residential sector. So that's the focus for today. Next. All right, so what I'll be going through, I'll first provide some context how this fits into the overall picture of programs and also our existing building electrification efforts, how this relates to things we already have and things that we're lacking. Then once I touch about building electrification efforts that we'll be launching this year, we'll kind of narrow it down to the turnkey installation service, because again, that's the contract that's currently we're working on. So next. Thank you. Next, sorry, I forgot I added animation here. So this just again for more context, just so everybody's familiar, exactly what it is that we're talking about here. The programs team oversees all of our building electrification, transportation electrification, and distributed energy resources like solar and battery storage programs. In the building sector, we focus both on new and existing buildings, largely in the residential sector. On new buildings, mainly through policy, like encouraging cities to adopt REACH codes and so on. Existing buildings, to date, we've largely done it through incentives, but we have had a income qualified direct install program So that's kind of where it all fits into the pictures. We'll be talking about the existing buildings piece of everything that programs does. Next. All right, so also further how this fits into the picture. So in 2022, as you know, program staff came to the board with a decarbonization feasibility and assessment plan, showing just what's feasible for us to achieve by 2035 in terms of decarbonization. For the building sector, that report found that we are best positioned to affect change in small residential defined as single family homes, or small multi-family buildings. Though the program that I'll be talking about here is really for single family homes. And that we identified that really all of these components are needed for residential building electrification to succeed in the county, in Los Banos. So we need flexible incentives, high touch support, and also links to finance as an overall theme of what it is needed. Next. Next. Thank you. Okay, so this is what we currently have. And again, all residential focused. So we've been offering rebates for heat pump water heater and heat pump HVAC equipment. For water heaters, really for a long time, since January 2021. So it's been a while. For heat pump HVAC since October 2022. So about a year and a half. Also in October 2022, we launched our 0% loan program. If you're not familiar with that, is an on-bill financing program. Residents can get a loan up to $10,000, again, to finance heat pump water heater, heat pump HVAC installations.
And Alejandra, is that still in effect?
Yes,
It is.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
So all of these programs, actually just the rebate and the loan programs are currently open right now. So we continue to offer rebates and we continue to offer the loan. Last year in October 2023, we did make some modifications as we often do with our programs. So with the rebates, we did reduce it, reduce the amounts by $1,000 just across the board. And then with the loan program, when we initially launched it, we used to allow residents to finance it up to 10 years. But to make the program more sustainable and just be able to serve more residents, we reduced that term to 5 years. But both programs remain open. In terms of who can participate in these programs, they are open to all residents. So it's not income qualified in any way. The rebate program in particular is very open. There's no contractor requirements. Even folks that are doing the projects themselves, as long as they're getting permits, can qualify for the rebates. The loan, however, does require the use of a contractor, and we do have a list of approved contractors that residents have to use to get the loan. It is not really the only requirement is for the contractor to attend a training with us, because they have to understand that the loan is being paid directly to them on the customer's behalf. There's really nothing past that, so it's not a recommendation of who you recommend as contractors. It's just more so they understand how the payment flows, and that's why we have that list. And then we have our home upgrade program, which is our direct install income qualified program that we've been running since late 2021. So what that offers is one electrification measure, a heat pump water heater, induction stove, or an electric dryer. To date, we haven't really offered heat pump HVAC system, so it has been more limited on those smaller measures, lower cost measures. But in addition to electrification, we've also been doing some like light energy efficiency and also minor home repairs, even things that may not be energy related, for those homeowners that are participating. This program currently is closed because the contract with the current administrator for the program will expire at the end of June. And as I'll talk about here, it's a different administrator than what we selected to move forward with. So right now we have a wait list up on our website, and it's just a notice that says, we'll start serving customers again in the spring. So that's why we're, trying to move things fast, get to the board and get the contract signed and program launched as soon as possible. Next. Yeah.
Approximately how many are on, I think around 50 somewhere?
It's about 50 or so. Yeah. Yeah. Next. And and this just shows how many people have participated in our program. So the rebate and loan program, again, are sort of like the market rate, like non-income qualified programs that anybody can participate in. That's the number of individual households that we've served. So that's over, I guess, 3 years, but really the large majority, at least like 70% or so, have been in the past year and a half. And then home upgrade, we will do 300 homes through the current contract to date through the end of last January, or this past January, we've done 281 so far. And then these are the counts of all electric appliances that we've installed combined. Next. So despite the fact that we have, large incentives and also financing options available for residents, we still feel like there's a lot more services that are needed to help the average resident be able to electrify their home in a seamless way. I think the rebate and the loan program, again, which are the ones that are open to everyone, have largely served sort of like early adopters, or those folks that are more environmentally motivated or just really interested in new technologies. So those kind of, residents may be more willing to spend the time getting multiple contractor quotes, researching equipment, and just like doing project managing all of it themselves and trying to figure out like new technologies and, doing all of that. But we know that to scale this, to the, wider residential market, we really need to address more barriers than, an average customer faces. So emergency replacements is a particular issue for water heaters. Most people replace their water heaters when it breaks. And there's some challenges in installing heat pump water heaters as quickly as you can replace a gas water heater with a gas water heater. Lack of clear information, again, it's newer technology. I think that's gone better, in the past year or so. There's a lot more just knowledge about heat pumps and stuff like that, but still newer technology can be difficult to select contractors and equipment, especially if you don't know, what you're looking for. Again, sometimes people have limited time and money, and then there's sometimes technically complicated installations and, no resources for residents to, get help figuring that out. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so this is our overall vision for our building electrification V2 programs. So as a principle, we're planning to scale to whole home. So specifically the direct install or home upgrade program is what we've been calling it. We've, like I mentioned, only been doing one electrification measure per home. We do plan to start to scale it to whole home. We also want to increase the number of homes that we're serving per year. We want to launch one-stop shop services, so just more robust education on our website, maybe some tools like a bill calculator, so on, things like that, just things that residents can really use and get information from. Also a concierge service, so like a hotline, somebody that a resident can talk to and ask them technical questions, and they can help figure out their answers. And then a turnkey installation service. So today, next slide. I'll be talking about really that bottom piece, which is the turnkey installation service. But before I get into the details of that, just high level, just so you understand sort of like the timeline and how all these pieces fit into each other. So the top three blue bars at the top of the slide are all the turnkey installation service. So there's three sort of elements to the turnkey installation service. There's the income qualified piece, the market rate or non-income qualified piece, and then emergency water heater replacement service. We do plan to phase them in, so we don't plan to launch it all at once. And that's just to ensure quality and make sure that we're doing things right, and some things just take longer to set up. And then the green line is one-stop shop website that's largely being led by our marketing team and figuring out exactly what it is that we're rolling out. And then the concierge will be also internal to PCE. So we actually are hiring a person that will be, dedicated to the concierge service. So that will be, has like technical knowledge and all of that. And that will go kind of hand in hand with the proposed contact center. So I'm not sure like how familiar you are with the contact center. I know that it's been brought to maybe the executive committee before, like as an exploration item, but our account services team is looking into bringing our contact or call center in-house, just to provide like a customer first approach and just be able to answer more robust questions across the organization, which we currently don't really have. So the concierge person really goes hand in hand with the contact center, because the idea would be that if we have an in-house contact center, they actually can answer questions about rebates and processes and like what's the status of my application. So not everything would go to the concierge. We just would have like more in-house support to be able to answer those questions, which is not really currently in place. Next slide. Oh,
Michael has a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I noticed in your barriers, you had finding and selecting contractors and equipment. As you expand this program, are you going to be limited by the contractor base?
Yes, the turnkey installation service that we're launching will have limited contractors. But our intention is not to get rid of what we have. So we are still going to have the rebate program, the loan program. So the residents can still use any contractor they like, and they will still have plenty of contractor options. If somebody wants to, sort of project manage their project and get multiple contractor quotes and everything, they can still use the concierge service, against which will be like PCE internal resource. So the turnkey installation service is going to be a small number of contractors, but the idea is not that we expect everybody to go through that. We think that probably the large majority are going to continue to just go, sort of do the project on their own and apply for a rebate, and they still will have the option to do that. This is just to make it more seamless for those that just don't want to really make any decisions, just install a water heater. I'm not gonna ask questions about what kind of equipment and stuff like that.
Do you feel that the population of contractors who are well experienced in this is adequate now?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Good.
And the ones that will be part of, which I'll cover in the next slides, that are part of the turnkey installation service are really experienced in
So in other
electrification.
words, contractors are getting on board and learning all the complexities of heat pumps and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've definitely seen more contractors engage in heat pump water heaters and heat pump HVAC equipment. Because we do manage the rebate and the loan program in-house, we have a lot of like those contractor relationships because, they talk to us directly when they're enrolling in the program. And, in the past year and a half, really a lot of them come to us to enroll in the loan program and be able to do this. I think just because of the amount of incentives that are out there for it too. Yeah.
Alejandra, will you have enough for the market rate group too? And so there won't have to be a long wait?
Yes, that's the idea, is to have like a dedicated contractor with like dedicated crews to work for market rate projects.
Yeah.
But it really, I guess, will depend on the volume. I do have more slides about that program though.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, quick question, just to clarify for Michael and others who might have that concern about the number of contractors who are proficient with heat pumps. Do you have a sense of how many tech certified contractors serve San Mateo County? I think it's many dozens.
It's
I
many
think
dozens.
That number might
Yeah.
help kind of alleviate those concerns.
Yeah. I mean, there's, in our loan program, there's at least like 30 contractors enrolled. And while they may not all like focus on heat pumps, like a lot of them definitely still do gas. It just shows that a lot of them are more installing this equipment. I've definitely seen more growth like in the HVAC side of things. I think it's easier for an HVAC contractor to install a water heater than the reverse. And a lot of HVAC contractors that maybe were only doing like air conditioning before, like now they install heat pump HVAC systems and also can do water heaters as well. Okay.
Is the concierge service 24 hours?
The concierge service will not be 24 hours. No, I think the idea would be that it would be during business hours. Yeah. And in terms of the contact center, so like our call center, because again, it'll kind of go hand in hand. I'm not really sure what the plan currently is. Yeah.
3 years ago, the Fossil Free Building Silicon Valley did a seminar on heat pump water heaters for plumbers who didn't know about them. And when we first started talking to them, they really had a lot of questions and almost had to pull them along. Things have changed now in the last 3 years, Mike. The people that we're talking to now really get it. They understand what they are. It's a huge change.
That's great.
And it's the heat pump contractors who are wanting to expand. Maybe their children are taking over the business. That's been a big factor.
Well, they see it as the future.
They see this as the future, They're exactly the words they've been using.
And Robert, does that extend throughout like the South Bay Peninsula, all the way up through?
It
San
extends even
Mateo?
to the coast, which has always had an
Okay.
issue with finding enough
Yeah.
contractors.
Okay, great news.
Okay, next slide. And then next slide. Okay, so now narrowing down into the particular contract that we're going to be talking about here, which is the turnkey installation piece. So that contract will have three components, which are all gonna be related and ultimately will be part of the same sort of program umbrella. But the first component is the income qualified, no cost electrification. Otherwise, you could also call it like home upgrade V2. Because home upgrade has been doing income qualified, no cost electrification. It's just that the level of service will increase. We will start offering whole home electrification instead of just one measure per home. So the investment per home is going to increase quite a lot. And then we also budgeted to just do more homes in general. So even though it won't be like a brand new service, it will be significantly expanded from what we have been doing for the past 2 years. And then the middle
Sorry.
one.
Well, that also includes some of the safety things that you did before.
Yes. And then the market rate piece, so that one is new. So we will start offering installation services for, market rate customers. So those that would not be income qualified for this free service. And, the idea will be that we will leverage the contractors that we have as part of the income qualified service to be able to have like dedicated crews that are only doing electrification projects, and can also offer the same services to all residents, but at a cost. So we will continue to offer our current rebate and incentive level and same offerings like the loan, the rebates and all of that will be available to these residents. If they want to go through our program, they can just, contact us or implementer and, one of the contractors would go and do the project, and the rebates will be seamlessly kind of integrated. And if they're getting a loan, same for that as well. But as I've already mentioned, this isn't replacing the rebate program. So just want to make that clear that we're still going to have that. And we still do expect that the majority of projects are going to go just through the rebate program. And then the third component is the emergency water heater replacements. So this would be having a hotline available 7 days a week, even holidays, weekends, that folks can call if their water heater broke, and that we can go out and replace it with a heat pump water heater, or if a heat pump water heater is not immediately able to be installed, then either using like more alternatives, like maybe putting in a loaner until we can install the heat pump water heater, but just a way that we can really capture the largest segment of the market in water heater replacements. So that's really critical.
And you guys will stock these loaners?
Yes, or the implementer will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one other question about the market rate group again. What if somebody, like my house is probably in this category, if I want to do additional going electric, my panel probably can't handle it. Will there be somebody on the team that can advise me how to go about upgrading my panel without, spending over what I need to spend?
Yeah, so all the contractors that will be part of the program are general contractors, so they'll have all trades in-house. But even, taking like that's a step further, that's like when the contractor actually goes in the home. But how the program will work is the administrator or the implementer, Franklin Energy, which I'll get to, they are going to go out there and do a site assessment. So homeowners, and that applies to both the income qualified and the market rate segments.
Okay.
There's a site assessment that's happening. And then, we intend to use guidelines that we've developed for minimizing service upgrades. So
Okay.
using like efficient, heat pumps and, maybe like more innovative alternatives like circuit splitters if needed or sub panels. So yes, the site assessor, which is a Franklin employee, will be trained on all of that. And then the work kind of just gets assigned to the contractor and then they come out and actually do the installation. But the first point of contact is actually a Franklin like energy advisor employee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think you may have said this, and I just missed it. On the emergency water heater replacement, you'd be replacing with heat pumps, but you said if a permanent heat pump is not available, you could give them loaners. And I remember we had a conversation about this before. Are those loaners gonna be gas powered or would they be like the 120 volt
Yeah.
pumps?
So I think we would use both, I guess is the answer. So the contract doesn't define, doesn't like limit an option for if a heat pump water heater is not immediately, or a 240 volt is not immediately, feasible. But yes, we have been thinking of using either gas loaners or 120 volt heat pump water heaters if there's already a 120 circuit that it can be plugged into, and either having that be the permitted unit or temporary, depending on the needs of the home, if it's like big enough to meet the home needs and stuff like that.
Would
So
would the electric version be prioritized, like you'd only do gas if there was not an
Yes.
outlet?
mhm, yes. Okay, next slide. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Stan.
I just want to let you guys know too, if you have any questions or concerns about your panels and its capabilities, you can always call your brothers and sisters in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers here in San Mateo County. We'll be more than happy to point you in in the direction of qualified electrical contractors for service upgrades and whatever else you may need.
So they would sort of consult with this Franklin person?
They will consult with you.
With me, okay.
If you have concerns about panel upgrades and what you would need for additions and so on and so forth, absolutely.
Great.
Next slide. Okay, so this just covers more of like the process that we went through to select the recommended implementer. So we issued an RFP, or request for proposals, so public solicitation, back in August. Proposals were due in October and we made a selection in December. And then the other thing is that we did jointly develop this RFP with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, CCA in Santa Clara County. They intend to launch the same services. So currently their plan is when we get our contract approved through the board, they are going to go to the board and ask for the same services. So at the moment, the program is envisioned and it has been worked through as a joint program with SVCE. But the contract is just between us and Franklin. They are going to have to contract separately with SVC, but that's already in the works.
But are there still some economies of scale by doing it in conjunction with SVCE?
Definitely, especially in the startup phase. So that's already sort of built into the contract. Is mainly like the program design and like the startup phase of it. There are some economies of scale for sure. Yeah. I think the implementation cost will largely depend on like just the demand of the program. So it'll just kind of be per home and stuff like that. But a lot of the administrative aspects that are just straight up like administrative, like reports and invoicing and design and all of that, there will be some savings with working with them.
I wanted to mention that this committee asked me to review the 5 proposals that came in. I did read all of them. I participated in the shortlisting, and it was pretty simple. When we came to our first meeting, we all unanimously agreed who the top 2 were to interview, and out of those top 2, they selected one. The RFP made it easy because the RFP was so well written by PCE. It has so much detail about what to expect, what PCE is asking for, what we're asking for in the way of customer service. It made the selection pretty easy. When it comes to selecting the shortlist, one of the things, to get back to what you asked, Michael, is scalability. Can somebody come in and take this over and be ready to go right from the start? And then as the program gets bigger, will they be able to take it over even more? And the answer was yes. And that's why I think the one company was selected, because they had the best chance of scalability, being able to develop enough contractors and find enough people that were skilled in the work.
So Franklin is not actually gonna be doing all the installations, they're coordinating the whole program?
That's
Okay,
correct.
and then the multiple contractors.
Yeah.
You're gonna cover who you select, who they're gonna use.
Yeah, the next slide is on that, yeah. But yeah, part of the process, as Robert mentioned, we got 5 proposals. We shortlisted 2, did interviews in person, did 2 rounds of follow-up questions, and ultimately selected Franklin Energy and their team as the awardee. So the contract is with Franklin, but they are just, I guess, next slide. Okay, so they're just part of the team. So Franklin Energy is going to be the administrator and the implementer. So, they basically are going to manage all the day-to-day aspects of the program. PC won't, that's why we hired a consultant to do it. So Franklin Energy will manage all of that. All the customer contacts, contractor oversight, really all aspects of the program is going to be managed by Franklin, again, for both PCE and SVCE. They're a large energy consulting firm, very active in California. We've worked with them indirectly in the past. PCE worked with Build the Green back in 2018. I was here then too. And then Franklin Energy acquired Build the Green. So some of the employees, even from Build the Green, are still at Franklin. So there are folks that at least I was familiar with too. They're very experienced in electrification and energy efficiency, and they have worked in San Mateo County. They worked with Meta on some electrification pilots in Bellhaven. Again, they worked in a really small capacity with us in 2018, and they also currently work with MCE on their direct install energy efficiency program. That's also for like low and moderate income residents. But as you know, to your question, they're not going to be the ones actually installing any of the equipment. They're a consultancy firm. So the contractors that will be installing the equipment, there's 3 of them, and they'll each have sort of a different focus in the 3 segments that we've talked about. So the income qualified microgrid and the emergency water heater replacement. And so Building Solutions currently works with with Franklin at the MCE program doing direct install for low income households. So ENSO is going to be the contractor that will focus on the income qualified installations. Although, you know, Fuse Service may support them as well, as in like they may also do some homes, but ENSO will just be really strictly only working in the income qualified segment. Fuse Service, if you're not familiar with them, they're a very large contractor in the Bay Area. You know, even through our rebate program, they're by far the largest amount of projects that we've seen through our rebate and loan program is Fuse. So they've been doing a lot of electrification, and they even do a lot of marketing that I've seen even on my own like social medias and stuff for electrification. They're going to focus on the market rate installs. So again, like the non-income qualified residents, and they also will be the ones doing the emergency replacement piece. Because they're quite large, they may also support the income qualified installs if needed, but otherwise, ENSO is really the focus there. And then Electrify My Home is another electrification focused contractors. They do a lot of trainings, even for contractors. And they are going to focus on the market rate installs, but I do expect that more installations are going to be done by Fuse and Electrify My Home, but both of them will be available. And then there's also another partner that's part of the team, which is Zero Home. Zero Home is a modeling software tool that uses like energy modeling to estimate bill savings and bill impacts, and also, you know, like decide like what a home, what kind of measures would be best fit in a home and what kind of impacts they would have. So Zero Home will be part of the contract, in that Franklin intends to use Zero Home at the in-person site assessments to be able to sort of estimate the bill impacts of particular measures, and actually like, you know, plug in details and characteristics about the home real time, like within the Zero Home tool. So that's why they're part of it as well. So these are all the partners, but again, the contract is with Franklin. Franklin is based out of Delaware, I'm pretty sure, but they're very active in California.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Hunter, is Fuse the only subcontractor who will do the emergency replacements?
Yes.
Yes.
As currently
so just
planned, yes.
one
Mhm.
to do all the emergencies, and the thought is that they have sufficient capacity.
Yes.
Can you say a little bit about RHA? They were the longtime contractor running the income qualified program.
Yeah.
And so this feels like a little bit of a judgment on the quality of their work. I'm just curious how they compare to Franklin.
Yeah. So just to make it clear, like we've been very satisfied with their work. We really like them as partners. We like all the employees there, and we've been, you know, I think we've overall gotten really good customer feedback on the current home upgrade program. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we were between 2 firms, and it was pretty close, and that was RHA and Franklin. We had a scoring matrix, so there was different components that went into the decision, but I would say one of the largest ones was cost. So there's cost, and then also just the way that Franklin presented their emergency water heater piece was also more streamlined. RHA has been a great partner, but they're a smaller firm, and they also really only do like largely focused on like income qualified programs. Franklin is just a larger firm that has done all sorts of programs, including a lot of like market rate and just larger programs like, large territory programs and stuff like that. And yeah, so there's a couple of things that came into play, but I would say cost and some of the streamlined customer experience and some of the components, specifically market rate customers, is why we ended up selecting Franklin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was doing the reviews, Diane, they were close between the two. It really did come down to ability to deliver on scale. And Franklin is a bigger firm. RHA's, they both did fantastic proposals, very impressive. We received 5, we only talked to 2. So they're good, but it was close.
Yeah. Next slide. Oh, okay, so this is the final slide. So this just shows a preview to what we'll present to the executive committee on Monday. So this just shows the contract budget for 3 years. So this would be through the end of June 2027. And then this separates it out by the segment. So again, I'm talking about income qualified, which is the no cost service, market rate installations, and then emergency water heaters. So as you can see sort of on the chart on the right, this is a $24 million contract. But just so you know, I guess with what we're going to the board is going to be a $26 million ask, simply because I didn't include it here just for lack of, not going into it. But the city of Menlo Park has gotten some money from the state to do electrification, and they intend to allocate that money through our program, just so we can implement this, as we already will have a program that's going to serve Menlo Park homes. So it's just the easiest way for them to do
That's
what they're trying to do.
that Josh Becker retired.
Yes, it's 4 million, but they've only received 2.25 so far, because this trench is like in 2 segments.
Okay.
So the contract with Franklin is actually for 26 million. We just to round it, only included 2 million. So that's what it'll say at the executive committee, but this is the PCE only budget. And then
And that 2 million will be spent only on Menlo Park.
only in Menlo Park, and they also wanted to only be in Bellhaven, so District 1. Yeah.
Perfect.
But as you can see, like on the right, the majority of the budget is really on income qualified electrification, like on direct installation costs. So that like 19.65 million is on the cost of fully electrifying a minimum of that many homes. Again, there's a lot of assumptions. These are all estimates. Ultimately, the exact amounts will depend on uptake in the program. Like for income qualified homes, for example, like that budget assumes that every single home needs all 4 electric equipment. But in reality, some homes may only, get a heat pump, HVAC system, a dryer or something, and they'll be fully electric. Or maybe they just don't want to change out their stove, and we're not going to force people to fully electrify their home to participate. We will require that at least the gas water heater or the gas furnace is replaced. So at least one of the major end uses, just to, not go into homes to do like really small measures. But that 525 is really just estimated if every single home got everything, which it's not going to be the reality. So in practice, it's going to end up being more homes. It's just an easier way to present it. And then market rate installs, the budget is reflective of our rebates, because again, our rebates are going to be flowing through Franklin. And again, just for the turnkey installation program, we're still going to have rebates available on their own. And then the emergency water heater, same. There's, of course, our heat pump water heater rebate will apply, but then there's also like the added labor costs of it being an emergency water heater replacement, and especially if there's some sort of like temporary unit installed, PCE is covering that incremental cost. So that's what that's for. And then implementation costs really refers to everything that's not installation. So that's really a lot. Program design, like ongoing customer support, contractor oversight, ensuring compliance with program policies, and doing the site assessments in person. Just a bunch of anything that's not the direct installation cost is part of that line. And then another thing, so then this program will pay prevailing wage. So all of the installation contractors will be required to pay prevailing wage, and that will be certified to the California Department of Industrial Relations portal. That's how Franklin intends to do it, and PC will have auditing capabilities into that. And I think that's it.
Gail Williams
questions?
had her hand up for a while.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Gail, do you still have a question?
Yes, I do. So the role of Franklin, are they like project managing the installations and then is there a fee for their role to the resident who are signing up for the market rate installations?
They are project managing the installations, and Franklin is gonna be doing a site assessment for every homes, for the market rate homes. PC is gonna cover that cost. So residents won't have to pay that. But there is, some protections built in there. I guess, like, if like a customer has like a lot of questions or really wants like a custom design or stuff like that, then like those costs would be at the customer's expense, or if they like want really premium equipment, for example, not just what the program is going to offer, because the program is meant to just be sort of like a seamless way to electrify, but not one where those that want like a really custom project and just want to really pick every single component, that's really not the best participant for this program. I think that, just going through a rebate program and finding a contractor that can work with them would be through that. This is just more of a way to like more quickly and efficiently just get heat pumps out there. So the site assessment, it'll be covered by PCE, but if a customer requests like more additional services, then that would be at a cost to them. The PCE subsidy is really the rebate. So even taking like, say, like an induction stove, for example, like we'll offer that installation as part of the market rate program, but we don't have a rebate for that right now for, residents. So that will be fully at the cost of the resident. The rebates will be the same. If they're doing a water heater and heat pump HVAC system, they'll get PCE subsidies because we have rebates right now on that. But the program will offer services that are beyond what PCE currently offers rebates for. So in that case, it'll be at the owner's expense, if that makes sense.
Jason, Go ahead, Jason.
I'll try to be quick. Kathleen already brought this up. I've heard Diane bring it up for like 24 months, but I think, and I'm grateful. And maybe you were gonna say the same thing. I think it would be great if, and I want to explain why, if the emergency program is very focused on, because number one, if you make them, I use Fuse of the 9 bidders I got for my project, they're the only one that gave a damn about electrification at all. So they did a good job marketing to me and I'm great, they're part of this. But if they can do electric, temporary, either 110 or whatever kind of things, and we get rid of gas, not only will it be great for the whole point of this thing, but it'll also let whoever gets this to see that it works. And it'll confirm they should continue with an electric heat pump. And I think that's an incredibly imperative thing that we stress. And furthermore, and I don't know, but anecdotally, the 2% and the 370,000, this is where everybody in my family who's heard me talk and proselytize about this for years, their thing breaks, guy comes out, it's gas. It never is electric, because the emergency means get it in, I'm gonna not get a shower, I'm gonna freak out. If you live where I live and the power's off every week for a week, it doesn't matter. But for the people who actually have power from PG&E, it would be great to have an electric alternative there from day one. I don't care what it would cost. I think it's imperative that it be electric emergency, and whatever we do to get rid of gas, the better. Personally, I'm not speaking for our group, but if you have the choice of electric or nothing, or gas or nothing, I would choose nothing.
Yeah.
I'd rather they be stuck having to get an
Hear, hear.
electric if we could do that. So I just want to put that in as part of my piece here for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. You saved me having to pontificate on that.
Well, I stole that from you, so.
And I have a comment spill on that and then a question. Comment is there is a new split 120 volt heat pump water heater that is newly certified for sale in the US. I think it's Australian, it's from Embertech. That could be a really great temporary solution or permanent for homes, especially if they have an emergency replacement need and they had tankless gas. And so if they have a spatial constraint, right now the split systems are extremely expensive. This new import from Australia, I think, will be cost competitive and potentially a permanent solution. And especially on a panel that's kind of crowded and at the edge of its capacity. Question on fixed pricing for HVAC systems. We see all sizes of heat pump HVAC systems. And I think offering fixed pricing in this program is really exciting and can help bring the cost down for everyone. But will there be kind of a spectrum of pricing relating to the size of the heat pump And, you know, because if you live in a 3,000 square foot home and you need a 4 or 5 ton unit, that's obviously more expensive. And then some homes are gonna need extensive ductwork or remediation and, you know, I see bids range from 12,000 on up to 40,000.
Yeah. Same.
So, is there like a surcharge that you would tack on for homes like that, or how do you, or would the cost just be kind of averaged across the county so that it's absorbed, or how do you deal with that wide range?
Yeah, yeah. So for heat pump HVAC in particular, the fixed pricing, we will have like 7 different configurations. So for ducted, it'll be from 2 ton to 5 ton. For ductless mini splits, from 1 zone to 4 zones. And there'll be a price for each of those. So it'll be a fixed price for all of those. You know, that said, it will have some like parameters, so like, you know, what it includes, like that's just a heat pump installation under like normal conditions. Like if a home needs its duct replaced, then that would not be part of this cost, like the fixed cost. But what we work through with Franklin is also having fixed costs or a range of fixed costs of like remediation measures. So replacing the ducts, you know, a bunch of other things. There's in the contract, it'll be like that as well. So for income qualified homes where we're gonna pay for everything, if a home needs it, you know, and it can obviously be done within budget and everything, then we will cover that, but we will have the same measures available for residents. So we'll try to make things as transparent as possible. We still haven't really gone to the point of like how we're gonna communicate the fixed pricing, because like it's a really long Excel table. So I'm not sure exactly how we'll communicate it, but the idea is that there is fixed pricing and that we'll make it transparent, like what is included as part of that, and any additional costs, you know, would be paid by the homeowner.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the income qualification? What level are you?
Yeah, so currently in the home upgrade program is below 80% of the average medium income. The contract with Franklin doesn't define eligibility, you know, because that's part of the finalizing the program, you know, design and eligibility criteria and all of that. So we'll define that for this program, but my thinking has been to stay with the same 80% AMI. Yeah.
Yes, and I was just curious about Fuse and Electrify My Home. Are they self-performing the electrical work? Maybe you can answer that, Jason. And I just want to make sure that they're in compliance with Workforce Policy 10 and who's running compliance on that.
Self-performing as in their own employees performing the work instead of subs? Yes, yeah, they're self-performing, yeah.
Even there was a couple of projects in my neighborhood by Fuse, and I went over there, I was looking for that issue. And all the people there were employees of Fuse. And they all actually, they come from different countries, but some of them come from parts of Russia, Ukraine, thank you. And then there's another country, and they seem to be brothers that work together. It's a nice set. They're a good bunch of people to work with. I understand your concern about self-perform. That was something I was looking for.
Yeah, the next slide is just questions, if you guys have any questions.
We've been tempering.
Yeah, I know.
Are there any other, Robert, do you have?
I'm sorry. One of the things that we always heard when some of us in this room stood before city councils many, many times over the last 3 or 4 years, one of the issues always came up was equity. I am really happy to see that 525 income qualified installs are being done, which is far and away is the largest percentage of the contract. That was something we heard all the time. The other thing we heard about was smoothing the permit process. We still hear that. What conversations have you had with Franklin and maybe the others about smoothing the way cities approve permits? Because that can take time.
I know, yes.
Have you talked to them about that?
No, we haven't gone into those conversations, and doing any specific permitting streamlining process or anything like that for all the 22 jurisdictions that we have is not part of the, it's not part of the scope. But what we did when we launched the home upgrade program with RHA is we did meet with the building departments of the largest cities that we anticipated a lot of projects would take place in, just to let them know like, hey, we have this program. It's funded by Peninsula Clean Energy. It'll be doing this, like, we'll be submitting a lot of permits. I mean, the permits are submitted by the contractor, not like Franklin or even RHA. So, but that's probably what we'll do again, is again, just meet with cities, just to let them know that the program exists and see if there's any way that they can streamline. But even doing that, like a lot of cities, it's not like they're going to prioritize our permits versus others. So, and it's just
right.
really such a, it varies so much across the different jurisdictions. There's some in the county that I've heard are particularly bad, but others that are not that bad.
The city council of San
Yeah.
Mateo brought it up in our
Yeah.
study session a couple of weeks ago. They
Mhm,
definitely want to do smoothing of the
mhm.
permit process.
Yeah, no, I
And I would
definitely
be
think,
interested if they live up to that.
yeah.
So whatever you can do with Franklin to help that process would be great.
Philip,
Yeah,
I remember working with you a couple years ago on contacting all the jurisdictions in San Mateo County to learn how they were doing on streamlining the EV charging installation process. Would there be anything that Alejandra could learn from you in that regard?
Well, I mean, the cities are legally required by state law to streamline their EV charging permitting processes,
Wow.
and no such process really exists for what Alejandro will be dealing with on the building side. Generally speaking, buildings, in terms of where the policy is at, and kind of like, especially how costs are done to homeowners and how these permit streamlining is going, the building electrification world is about 8 years behind where
Okay.
EVs are. So just kind of imagine where EVs were 8 years ago, and that's kind of, a lot of those growing pains still exist for these. Permit streamlining is kind of just one of them.
Is there anything, I mean, honestly, just sitting here dreaming, is there anything we could do with, say, a Josh Becker to get some sort of new guidelines passed about that?
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
I mean, it seems to make a huge difference with the communities that I was talking to, the works departments that, yeah, they by law had to comply. So anyway, I guess it's.
I see Blake is on the line. I don't know if Blake, if you're there, if you can comment on some of the permit work
There it is.
that some agencies have been doing.
Thank you for calling on me. I was about to raise my hand. Programs manager for Peninsula Clean Energy, and I'm going to introduce myself further in a minute here for the next item. We have done work. We have done a work stream with our consultant for the Reach Codes project, TRC, on permit streamlining and gathering data about how permits working at our member agencies. In addition, our partner, Silicon Valley Clean Energy on the Reach Codes project, is working through a permit modernization effort on behalf of their cities, which we are following closely. So we are working as far as we have done some research, and we're planning on, through this process, working with our cities to make sure that permits are moving quickly. Each city has them differently, has different fees, has different systems. We're to make sure they're working.
Okay, so is the answer to my question then, could we get something at a higher level, like a higher level law passed that cities had to comply?
I would say there are many state level requirements for electric vehicle charging that would be beneficial if they also existed at the state level for electric buildings. They would be great if that kind of thing did happen. Would be my response.
How do they happen?
I think that's a good question for our ledge folks.
Yeah.
For our what?
For
Our legislative folks. Okay, all right, well, just dreaming. Okay, are there any, let me just ask this, are there any public comments for Alejandra? Oh, I'm so
There's a
sorry.
couple.
Should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Brian Schmidt from Menlo Spark. And the question I had was regarding who has control of the information or ownership of the information that will be generated in this process. I think in particular, the site assessment process, having that information, even if no work is done at any particular home, could be useful information to have in the future. Maybe other information that's generated as well.
So all the information that's gathered as part of the program, the PC will receive. Yeah.
I have a follow-up, whether the
Yeah.
homeowner gets to keep it.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Gail.
Well, I think Cheryl, you mentioned, how do we pursue a proposal for municipalities to streamline permitting?
Yes.
Can we as a CAC make a recommendation that PCE pursue that?
We can recommend anything.
Let's do it.
I don't know if we can make it happen, but we can recommend it. Okay,
Well,
that's a good idea, Gail.
Yeah, what is the process that PCE then would find a legislator who could propose it?
Blake, or, well, I don't know who would answer that.
Well, we can pursue, let's just explore it then and see if it can be done.
Blake, do you want to offer any other answers to that question?
I would say if as I mentioned, there are multiple requirements at the state level for EVs.
Right.
On top of just what you've discussed. So if you want to reach out to me for what a list of those are of some innovative state level policies that there have been on EVs that we would like that it would be nice to have for electric buildings, I would be happy to share that.
Okay, yeah,
I
Diane.
suggest that the building electrification work group take this up.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
PRC would provide a resource with recommendations on permit streamlining for building electrification to SVCE. Could be kind of the start.
Okay,
And Blake,
okay. So, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to make a recommendation as a group? Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
So would you like to take those down?
Please.
Okay. I'm gonna put up my timer so there's a review. Okay, first Todd. I will invite you to unmute.
Hi, thank you. This looks like a great program, and a question that I have is the vision that it will be likely and feasible to add more contractors that Franklin can utilize as the work scales up? And I'm particularly looking towards
That's a good question.
2010 and the BACMed 9.6 rule.
Yeah, yes, it is possible, and we're not restricted to the contractors that are part of the current group. So it is possible to scale up and increase the amount of contractors participating. I think another alternative approach also, I mean, Fuse itself is a really large contractor and they have a lot of crews. If we have a lot of volume, they could support the program with more crews as well. So that will be kind of the options that we would have available is either enrolling more contractors or just making sure that they provide more dedicated crews to our program. As a long-term vision of the program, we don't intend to make this like a contractor network program, and that it's just open. Like as an example, the Barron Home Plus program, they have a network of contractors. They go through some trainings. They enroll and they're a Barron contractor, but there's a lot of them, and it's not like they're Barron is like heavily involved in every single project. The vision for the turnkey install program is really just to have like very tight and direct control over those small set of contractors. So if we scale up, either the options are enrolling more contractors or getting more dedicated crews, but we just don't envision the program to be like a program where it's like with 20 different contractors. There's plenty of contractors out there that are doing this work. And again, residents will still be able to use any contractor they want by going through, doing the project on their own and just applying for the rebate or applying for a loan on their own. So we're not limiting the choices. We're just creating a new program that makes it more tightly controlled by PCE and also electrifies in a way that we want to. In a more streamlined way for those that want to go through that, but it's not restricted to that. So that's a long answer, but yes, we have that option. And that is something we might do, but we just don't envision it to grow by a lot either.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question.
All right.
Do you anticipate allowing other utilities beyond SVCE to participate in this approach?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the contract is just between PCE and Franklin. So if other CCAs or other utilities want to join the program and offer the same services, you know, our RFPs and our contracts always have like piggyback clauses, things that other public agencies can use to contract with who we have selected through a public solicitation process. So if there's other CCAs that want to launch the same services, whether it's the entire gamut of what we're doing or just like one particular thing, like say emergency water heater replacements, they can certainly do that. It would be a contract with Franklin, so they still would have to like contract directly with them. But as public agencies, they should have the option to take that route if they want to. And yeah, and we would love any CCAs that also join and, you know, do this as well.
Thank you. I think that's a very promising development.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Morrow.
Yes, good evening. How's everybody today? Yeah, the question I have is about the prevailing wage. That's great that you guys are going to pay prevailing wage, but does Fuse and Electrify My Home pay the prevailing wage for each individual craft? For instance, they'll have HVAC guys on the job, we'll have electricians on the job, we'll have plumbers, painters, tapers. Are they going to all be paid the appropriate prevailing wage for each individual craft? And who is going to monitor, who's going to run compliance on them?
Yeah, yes, the program will require that all jobs that have prevailing wage determinations are paid prevailing wage. So every trade will be required to be paid prevailing wage for all the projects as part of the program. And then on compliance, all the contractors will enroll with the California Department of Industrial Relations through their portal, and there's a way to do prevailing wage compliance there through their portal. Franklin will be sort of the primary auditor of making sure that they're ensuring prevailing wage compliance, but it's also built in as part of the contract that PCE has auditing capabilities and will have access to the same system. So if we want to go in and check ourselves, we could, in addition to reports that Franklin provides to us that the contractors are paying prevailing wage.
Very good. That sounds like a very good program. Let's see if they can handle all the work. It's gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Vanessa, are there more?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry. Excuse me.
Really excited about the program with huge success. I just had a question about building trust in the community. You probably have some experience with the original program. Like, does it just happen organically, or do you like practically try to host a community meeting to build trust between the residents and contractors you engage in the program?
So I'll speak on the current program first. So the home upgrade program, the way that we have enrolled customers into it, I mean, there's a couple ways. You know, as you may know, through our outreach team, we have outreach grants. So there's a lot of like community-based organizations that are, you know, working on the ground with communities and letting them know about the program and even helping them enroll in the program, especially some more than others that are really focused on that segment. So we definitely get a lot of referrals through community partners. When the program was open, we also would do like really targeted emails and also even call campaigns following up the email to care customers or care customers that were likely to be homeowners. We would try to filter as best as possible for renters. But, you know, to be honest, like aside from those like very targeted campaigns and just referrals through our outreach partners, we never really did any broad-based marketing for the program. I mean, also like the number of homes that we were serving was small. So, and like obviously the eligibility for it is narrow as well. So we never did any target like broad-based marketing, and we still got a lot of demand for the program. So I think now with the scale that we're looking at in this next phase, we are going to be doing more, you know, outbound marketing and outreach. So in terms of building trust in the community, none of the contractors are going to be canvassing, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, canvassing, but or being like kind of the first to meet with the customer. It'll all just be like Franklin employees, make sure that they're trained, you know, our messages, and make sure that they clearly communicate themselves as a administrator for Peninsula Clean Energy. And that everything is explained. Also, one of the ways that, when we would talk to folks, like say, like via email or on the phone, like through the current program, we would also point to our website. So like, hey, this is, our website, we're a public agency, like this is legit. So we'll have like, things that we can point people to. And then this round of the program, we also do engage to more formally, partner or contract with a community-based organization to do on-the-ground outreach, including canvassing door to door in particular neighborhoods, like very targeted. So that's something that we intend to do as part of, like separately outside of the ranching contract. Again, right now we already work with a lot of outreach organizations, but there's some organizations, like one in particular, that we think would be a good fit to be like a more official partner and actually be compensated for doing on the ground outreach into like hard to reach communities into the income qualified segment. So.
Any other questions from this room? Oh, all right.
Really, the public comment period is really not supposed to be a question and answer period. Obviously, the committee members can ask staff questions, but public comment is really just for people to make public comment.
Thank you, David, for the clarification.
Thank you, David.
Hi there. I think can folks hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hi, yeah. In the spirit of that, I do want to just comment and commend PC the work that they're doing. This is really one of the most impressive kind of suites of decarbonization programs in the Bay. I also just want to note that, sorry, my name is Sam Fishman. I'm with Spur, and we're working with a lot of partners in this room on decarbonization around the Bay. I wanted to just quickly note that we're initiating a project around permitting and city code reform to kind of to encourage building electrification and smooth the process. We're going to be talking to cities around the kind of collecting a set of recommendations based on common challenge. So just wanted to note that we're working on that and welcome any conversations with folks in the room about how to kind of go about that and get good recommendations that are actually helpful for cities.
Thank you, Sam. Would we like to take action on this? Would we like to make a recommendation to the board when this comes up later this month?
I would recommend and move this to the board.
Well, going to the board anyway, but we can make a recommendation as well, what we think about it. Yeah.
I move that we recommend that it be approved by the board.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Yes, the maker says okay.
Strong recommendation of support and also urge the board or PCE to act as expeditiously as possible to implement the programs.
Yes. Okay.
Much better.
And it looks like we would like to say that we would like to see only electric water heaters used as loaners.
Yes.
Where feasible.
Yeah. And we also want to say something about, we encourage PCE to seek a way to maybe at the state level or somehow get cities to have to comply quickly so that it facilitates the whole implementation of the program.
Yeah.
That might be a little bit beyond, this agenda item.
It might be what, David?
Beyond.
It's beyond the agenda. Oh, beyond.
This agenda item is really about the PC's program and making a recommendation at this point regarding legislation is probably a little beyond this agenda item.
Really?
I think we should take Diane's recommendation to just send it to the working group that's working on building electrification to discuss further and make a report back.
Okay. Vanessa, have you been by chance wording our resolution for us? Okay. So we wanted to make sure we,
You want to recommend they approve?
Yeah.
Sure.
Home, the turnkey home electrification service. As quickly as feasible, implement program. And then the emergency replacement program can install only electric water heaters.
Where feasible.
as long as we're feasible.
I was trying to get away with not saying. that.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's correct. I agree with you.
Because they were technically feasible,
In the beginning of line 2 or near the beginning of line 2. Right, are we happy with that? Oh, no, Kathleen.
well, and anything, we have approved the proposed program and implement the programs. What are we talking about, you know, be consistent with program or programs? What are we talking about?
Why don't we call it, instead of the first program, why don't we call it what it is, which is the turnkey home electrification service
Yeah,
Okay,
program? And then we can act on the implementing the programs of the program. I don't know if you don't want the plural.
Just say program, just do program.
That's fine, that's fine.
We, this the recommendation with an expression of strong support.
yes, enthusiasm, we want to do that. We could just say we enthusiastically approve. Or support.
And capitalized turnkey home electrification service.
Yeah,
please.
yeah, that's a real program.
And ignore the email I sent you with my bad jokes. And just deal with this.
You're fast, Vanessa.
Try to keep up with you all.
All right, are we, do you want to take a vote on this? Anybody want to make changes prior?
About this.
All right, let's take a vote.
say water heaters.
I think that I heard a motion, and like maybe, I don't know, someone started making a motion, I think Diane took over appropriately. So we can call this Diane's motion if she likes. But then I think we need
Oh, yes, we need a motion and a second, I'm sorry.
And I'll second.
a roll call.
I'll third.
What will you second, Robert?
Her motion, that,
Who's motion?
That thing.
Diane.
Diane's motion.
Diana.
Daniel Fairwell,
Approve.
Diane Bailey, approve. Stephen Booker,
Aye.
Michael Clausen,
Aye.
Kathleen Goforth,
Aye.
Melee Hinui,
Approve.
Aurelio Cesar, Gail Lee,
There's Gail.
She's muted.
Gail, you're muted.
Sorry, yes, I approve.
Margaret Lee, Jason Mendelson,
Approve.
Cheryl Shaw,
Approve.
Desiree Thayer,
Yes.
Robert Whitehair.
Approved.
Thank you, Melissa.
You had a lot of public
Can I
comment.
quickly, I just want to thank everybody, Alejandra and Blake Raphael and the whole team. I think this is an unbelievably great, big bite and change. everything.
Michael.
I don't want this to be inappropriate for us to say, but I think this is a potentially exemplary program that should be publicized among our other CCA colleagues around the state.
Here. We've asked for public comments already. Can I not do that again? Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to the next agenda item. Which is an update on reach codes with Blake and Alejandro again. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. So sorry.
Yeah.
I'll jump to Alejandro with questions. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for your service to the community and your service to Peninsula Clean Energy. Your advice is very useful in every item. My name is Blake Hershaft. I'm the Building Electrification Programs Manager and manage the Reach Codes program at Peninsula Clean Energy. I was asked to give this presentation to help field questions as there's been some changes and give an update what's going on REACH codes. That's something we're actively working through. Before I start my presentation, I am going to mention that I am not a lawyer, and it is up to each jurisdiction and their city attorney to determine the legal risk associated within their jurisdiction associated with REACH codes. I'm an engineer, not a lawyer. Sorry to say. So first I'll give some background on REACH codes. I do have a few slides, but I'm going to start this presentation verbally and then make sure to leave a lot of time for questions. So the California has a state building code, which is updated every 3 years that you need to follow to build buildings. Within that building code is a CalGreen, the green building code, which requires electric vehicle charging and other green things. And there's also the California Energy Code, which manages energy. At the federal level, there are federal requirements as far as how efficient appliances should be. And state requirements are not allowed to exceed those federal requirements. In 2019, Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Energy hired a consultant to help support cities who were interested in adopting REACH codes to help require new construction to have more electric vehicle charging and less building emissions. REACH codes are allowed by the state code to, local jurisdictions are allowed to adopt codes that reach beyond if a jurisdiction wants to have more efficient buildings or less water use or specific items. In our case, our REACH codes focus on all electric buildings served by our clean energy supply and electric vehicle charging infrastructure, because it's much less expensive to include electric vehicle charging when you're building the building. It's also less expensive to build an all-electric building in most cases than a mixed fuel building that includes gas. Almost on the background, I promise. 19 of our jurisdictions have successfully adopted REACH codes. It has been the most successful program in Peninsula Clean Energy from a greenhouse gas savings per dollar perspective. Very successful program. I've been working on the program since its inception and as a consultant, and then have been with Peninsula Clean Energy for a little over 2 years, managing it from this end. Some background on a Berkeley lawsuit, which is requiring some changes. In 2019, Berkeley passed an ordinance that requires built new construction to be all electric. In that same year, the California Restaurant Association brought a lawsuit against Berkeley. That lawsuit made its way through the courts and eventually ended up at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. In 2023, I believe it was in the spring, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the California Restaurant Association, saying that Berkeley's requirement was not allowed. Berkeley then requested an additional review session called an en banc. We found out on January 2nd this year that that request was denied and that Berkeley can no longer use that all-electric requirement. Berkeley's code is a municipal code, not technically a REACH code. But it is similar to what a lot of our jurisdictions have adopted, and some jurisdictions are pausing enforcement and considering what other code options they can bring to the table. After the decision last spring, our REACH codes team worked diligently to determine what other legal pathways we could use in case cities wanted support, and we started developing a couple alternative code options. I'm going to share where those are with you today. One of those is ready and available to be viewed on our website. The other one is in development and should be completed over the next month approximately. I believe that's all my background. So let me give you a couple slides. And I just want you to know this is a work in progress. I'm here because this is a request. Every month I will have more information for you and happy to share information and answer any questions. Perfect. So Some really good news. The state has really been moving forward, and I am very confident that the REACH codes that we have passed have inspired the state to move forward. The 2026 California State Energy Code update looks promising in terms of requirements for electric new construction and some existing building measures that mimic what we've seen in the city of San Mateo and Portola Valley. That could change before it's adopted. That would go into effect January 1st, 2026. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District rules, which we brought up many times, seek to disallow the sale of tank type gas water heaters starting in 2027. More requirements at the state level, similar requirements at the state level in 2030. All these are subject to change today, but this is the direction we're going. I really do think our REACH codes had a significant impact on moving the state forward, especially the 2026 goal. That said, we still perceive that cities will need REACH codes to make sure there's a continued signal to the market and not a gap in their codes from 2024 to 26. Allow for local control, including innovative approaches and catered exemptions specific to different communities. The state and BACMED codes can't do everything. They're limited in many ways. Local REACH codes enable state agencies to move forward, as I discussed on the previous slide. And if we do adopt more REACH codes with, say, existing building measures, we will take more action sooner. Greenhouse gas emissions are cumulative, and we are seeing the impacts of that now. So the sooner we reduce that. Two more slides. I'm going to go through the two approaches. So there's two model codes we are drafting. One, as I said, is available on the website with different legal risk and different pros and cons. The energy performance approach is what we're calling this one. Within the California Energy Code, you can do energy modeling to determine, to maybe choose to have an all glass building, which would be less efficient and isn't necessarily allowed, as this is an example. And then if you do that, maybe you install some other energy efficiency measures to make up for the additional energy use that a glass box would have. So there is a state modeling software called CBEC that is used on all large new construction projects and many new residential projects in order for them to comply. The energy performance approach would create a minimum code performance that you would have to meet if you're modeling your building. If your building's all electric and you have electric space and water heating with heat pumps, that will comply automatically. With the additional points that we would require under this code, under a performance, under a metric called EDR, a mixed fuel building would have to add a few other measures in order to comply. Increased efficiency, solar, added battery storage, things like that. So obviously the all-electric building would have dramatic GHG emission savings, and the mixed fuel building would still have some additional savings due to this efficiency, and it would be more expensive to build. It would be a more efficient building. This particular pathway is noted as an exemption that seems clearly allowed for a city to adopt and not be similarly illegal as noted for the Berkeley ordinance. The other consideration is an air quality code. An air quality code would require that a building or the appliances within the building have no emissions. Those could be greenhouse gas emissions, or those could be smog emissions, NOx, as we talk about with the BACMED ordinance. We're requiring either zero or ultra low emissions at the site. We are seeing multiple agencies go in this direction, and New York has adopted a similar code. New York City, Los Altos Hills passed on first reading a code like this. And local jurisdictions do have express authority in California to regulate emissions. However, this particular ordinance would would be a little less clearly legal when we're talking about the Berkeley ruling. And those are the two we are looking at. I also just want to mention there are some updates coming in the intervening code cycle starting on July 1st related to EV codes that some cities may want to consider looking at. There's been some great movement at the state level. In 2025, we also see some amazing new state level requirements on electric vehicles. So we'll be reaching out to all our jurisdictions to also discuss EV codes. And David can correct me if I got anything wrong.
Questions for Blake? Robert, I know this is an issue near and dear to your heart. Do you have anything to bring up?
No, not yet. It's so much to digest and it's moving along with so many different things coming along down the pike. I just don't think it's appropriate for me to say anything yet because I don't know enough. But
When is the next year, Blake, that California re-examines and considers reach codes or the state laws?
Yeah, so it'll be called the 2025 California Building Code Update. Unfortunately, the 2025 update actually starts to be enforced January 1st, 2026. So it's a little confusing. So that'll be January 1st, 2026. So for jurisdictions that have already paused enforcement of their all electric requirements, it is a 23-month gap there that may exist.
For the EV code, we're paying attention to state updates right now. In the proposed code, it's going through the review process and there's going to be public input opportunities starting next month for the 2025 to go into effect 2026 code.
And we're doing the same for buildings. We'll have a report. We'll have like a summary next month that we'll be looking through. There's some really exciting measures, including potentially that all replacement air conditioners in existing single family homes would need to be heat pumps, which would be exciting.
great idea.
Any other questions from the room? Oh, yeah, Robert. you
I
have-
just wanted to say, I thank you, Blake, for doing the presentation. It was excellent. It was where I was one of the people who looked forward to this update. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Brian.
Thank you. Good evening, Brian Schmidt again for Menlo Spark. I want to say, first of all, I appreciate Robert's caution on jumping in and delivering comments on this. I will say that Menlo Spark is cautiously considering something in reviewing these issues. Blake has mentioned two different approaches for dealing with this issue, this legal issue. One thing we've noticed is both approaches have advantages. We do not see a conflict between the two approaches. So one thing we're cautiously exploring is the possibility that a jurisdiction could do both. So they could get the more comprehensive version of an air quality standard and have the legal backup of the energy performance standard. So something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Kathleen.
So both of these approaches only apply to new construction though, is that correct? Like, is there anything for existing buildings or is that nothing happening there?
No, we are planning on, obviously we need to decarbonize existing buildings as well as new buildings if we want to meet our climate goals. We are actively working to see how we can include existing building measures as options for our jurisdictions under both approaches. It's easier to envision drafting them under the air quality code, especially for measures that can't be covered under the energy performance approach. So the energy performance approach covers water heating and space heating, but does not cover ranges or dryers, whereas the air quality code could. The reason those appliances aren't covered under the energy performance approach, which I could have told you previously, is that they're considered process loads, which is if you're energy commission, energy code nerd like me. I know what they are. They're basically things that you need to run, but that don't like help control comfort in your building. So they're not regulated under that pathway.
Thank you. All right, any other public comment that you can see? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much, Blake. We appreciate all that info and look forward to what you're gonna tell us in the coming months. All right, our next agenda item is a recommendation on program design and implementation of the electric vehicle managed charging program with Phil. Phil.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Phil Public, Senior Transportation Programs Manager here at Prince Clean Energy. So I oversee all of our EV programs, which range from our massive EV Ready charging rebate and technical assistance program to used EVs to e-bikes, GovEV for fleets, and now this proposed smart charging residential program. So before I dive into the slides, kind of what the takeaway here is that this is kind of the culmination of 2.5 years of pilot testing across 2 different organizations that are doing this, which is really pretty cutting edge stuff using connected car systems to do smart charging. The results, which I'll just kind of jump to first, are minimal in the near term, unfortunately. But we think are potentially pretty impactful in the mid to long term. So it's still something that we want to move forward with. It's something that we want to improve over time. And we learned a lot of really cool stuff. And I'm gonna provide some snippets of what some of those are. So let's dive in. Okay, so what is this and why did we do this smart charging pilot or managed charging pilot? We wanted to see how much load from EV charging we can shift at people's homes and how. And so we were looking at residential charging here, so charging at people's homes that utilize no hardware approaches. It's actually very rare for people to install a smart charger at their house. It looks like it's less than 5% of all EV drivers have kind of like a whiz-bang internet connected home charger. Most people just plug into some kind of plug. So we couldn't use a charger. So we're using telematics, which is the connected car features of almost all EVs these days to do this. The goal was to reduce overall daily peak loads in support of our 24/7 renewable energy targets. And then when possible, maximize for daytime solar, of course, although we want to make sure that we're not charging people on peak. And then we want to understand what customers thought of all this stuff and how do they react to different incentives. So let's go to the next slide. So this is what, I know it's being vague, so this is what the app actually looks like. So this is my 2020 Chevy Bolt plugged in at home. And you'll see, I think there's some animation here, Vanessa. Great, so you'll see that my car is plugged in at 6:01 p.m. The worst time that we want EVs to be plugged in. If I didn't do anything, if I didn't put a timer in my car, or if I didn't enroll in this pilot program with this app, then my car would start charging right away, which is again, not what we want. If you click the next one, but what the app is doing is it's saying, okay, we know your car is at 76%. You don't have a lot left to charge. So we're not gonna start charging you right away for sure, but we're also not gonna start charging you so that your car is ready by 7 a.m. because you told us you don't need your car to be ready by 7 a.m. So if you click the last one here, Vanessa, so here it's saying, we're gonna have your car ready, fully charged by 4 the next day. I'm a level 1 charger, so it knows I need more time. So it's gonna start charging me at 6:30 a.m. So for most folks who are not enrolled in smart charging, they time their charging, which means that this car, my car in this case, would have started charging at midnight. And that's fine, but it's not great. And so what this is doing is it's taking my car, which would have started charging at midnight, starts charging it at 6:30 a.m. so that it charges all through the solar hours throughout the day. and then stops when the on-peak rate starts. This is like the ideal scenario that we're trying to get people to do in the app. And it helps in a lot of different ways, because we don't like it when cars charge at 6 p.m. for sure. And we also don't like it when every car turns on at the exact same time at midnight. Those are two problems that this is solving. Okay, next slide.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, go for it.
Do you have a battery?
I do not have a battery, no. My car is my battery, I guess. No, I don't have a home battery, but we can factor that in into the equation here.
Cool.
Okay, so to test kind of this concept, we focused on TOUC and EV2A customers. That represents about half of all EV, a little over half.
Bill, will you spell out the acronyms first time around? please?
Yes, thank you. TOUC, or time of use C for some reason, is the default rate. You think it would be TOUA if it's the default, but it's not, it's TOUC. That is, if you do nothing and you move to San Mateo from somewhere else and you turn on your PG&E bill for the first time, that is the default rate that you are on. And that is actually the rate that the plurality of EV drivers are on, because people respond to their defaults. So folks are on the basic rate. EV2A is the opt-in home EV rate for PG&E. So you have to take action to join that rate. And the EV2A rate is similar to TOC. The hours are a little different, but more or less the same. On peak is higher, and then off peak is lower, lower prices for EV2A. So here's kind of the overview of the experiment. This is going to be kind of complicated, so I'm mostly going to simplify this here. But we had a control group because we were trying to have this as an academically rigorous experiment, and UC Davis has been collaborating with us on the design, and we're going to give them all of our data next month when the program, the pilot formally ends, to do their independent analysis. So we basically had smart charge groups and then rate modification groups. Smart charge groups are all the same. They all got the same thing. We just gave people different amounts of money to see how that would affect people's enrollment and retention. And the rate modification groups were these kind of messy groups where we tinkered with people's pricing. In one group, we changed their whole home, we changed the pricing of their whole home, and then by increasing their peak rates and decreasing their off-peak rates. For the treatment group 6, we did the same thing, exact same thing, but they didn't download an app. The intent of this group was to see how people look when they don't download the app. And then the last group 7 was we changed the pricing just for energy consumed by their car at home. Their house was the same. We just changed the car. Kind of basically like if it was a sub-meter, a virtual sub-meter is kind of how we treated it. Okay, so smart charge groups and rate modification groups. That's kind of the main point of what this is. All right, next slide, please. Who are the EV drivers of San Mateo County? So and then for this purposes, we focus on San Mateo County. There is a small group of EV adopters in Los Banos, but this effort really started before we enrolled Los Banos. They will of course be included in the full program. But for this conversation today, focusing on San Mateo County. So there's about 50,000 EVs on the road right now in San Mateo County. It's about 10% of all personal vehicles, which is great. We're among the top 3 counties in all of California. About 1/3 of all new purchases are electric. And as I mentioned before, a plurality of drivers, so 24.4% exactly, are on the default rate. And when we asked people who are on the default rate why they're not on the EV rate, half said they didn't know about it, or they have no idea what rate they're on now. They're like, maybe I'm on it now. I have no idea, but they're not. They're on the basic rate, the default rate. And 1/3 thought that the EV rate was more expensive. And maybe that's true because they're not shifting their loads. That would be true in that case. Or they perceive the high on-peak rates as expensive because the on-peak rates are higher than the EV rate. And 2/3 of these, the folks in this group are charging about 3 times per week. And this graph on the right here is really, really interesting. So this is what rates all of our EV drivers are on. The reason we were able to do this is because we took DMV registration data that we're able to get as a public agency and then synced that with meter data.
So we took every registered EV in San Mateo. We actually had every registered vehicle in the entire county. We know like what car it is, odometer, make, model, trim, that the DMV gave us, and then we sync that again with customer data. So we know where all the cars are. And then we use that to focus on what do people's homes that we know have an EV, what do those homes look like? And that forms the basis of a lot of analysis a little bit too. Okay, next slide. That's how we're able to do these cool graphs. So for these, we're taking a look at what people's homes are doing that we know have electric cars because of that, those data syncs. So on the furthest left, that's the default rate, about 25% of all our EVs look very similar to everyone else. It's a shallow duck is kind of how PCE's load looks like a, I don't know if that's a duck or if it's like a snake or it's a it's not really a duck. Yeah, it's more Loch Nessy, it's more flat. We have a relatively flat load compared to other regions that have higher like HVAC and AC loads. All right, in the middle, these are customers on the EV rate. They've opted into that, about 20% of EVs. And you can see how responsive they are to the rate. They're all starting their charging at midnight. And then that drops off over the next couple hours. And then that relatively flat load curve kind of resumes. And then for folks on the E1 rate, as a reminder, E1 was the default rate a few years ago that everybody was on, the non-time of use rate. There's no incentive to move your charging or your loads at all on the E1 rate. That's basically like an even shallower duck, more or less, but it looks basically the same as default customers, default rate customers. And I thought I had no idea that there'd be this many people on E1 still. So these folks had to request to go back to E1 because they got moved to TOUC during the migration. And then they had to request, it's an opt-in now. So they had to request to go back to E1. Okay, next slide. All right, so the main point here is that recruitment is a challenge. It was really hard to get people enrolled in this experiment. We emailed 17,000 people a few times. We sent them at least three emails, and we got about 700 enrolled in the experiment, which is actually pretty consistent with our colleagues at MCE and SVCE who have tried similar but sort of different approaches, but their recruitment numbers are about the same. Everybody here was offered a raffle ticket into a $500 raffle, of which there's gonna be 20 winners. That's pretty attractive, I thought. And then some people were getting up to $40 a month to participate. And those folks had the highest sign up rate at 10% or 11%, but that's not like much higher than the other groups. So all in all, recruitment's gonna be a real challenge to get to high numbers of EV drivers. For this experiment, we tried to make the messaging the same. We didn't want to do too much experimentation on the messaging for kind of the purposes of the experiment. But in the program, we're clearly going to have to do much more tailored messaging. We're going to have to target people on the TOUC, the default rate, different than people on other rates. And we might want to target people based on their usage, even different than other folks, to really try to hone in and make more compelling messages to get people to sign up. And EV2A folks were way oversampled. The folks that joined the experiment were mostly people on the EV2A rate. Those are the ones who raised their hands and said yes, that they wanted to do this. The eager beavers, those are the folks who joined, and there's sort of implications for that I'll talk about in a second. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So here's a couple of interesting things. We knew going into it that roughly 20% of charging happens away from home, and that came out basically nail on the head is what was validated. All this, now we're starting to get into charging data from the actual experiment. So this represents charging from about 700 cars, about 35,000 charging sessions over the last 7 months. So it's a lot of data. One thing that I love to see is that the expectation that every EV driver charges on a level 2 charger at home is not the case. In fact, more than half of all customers, and these are early adopters for the most part here, folks who have had their EV for at least a few months, like they haven't bought it in the last year. Over half of these folks are charging at either level 1 or what we call low power level 2, the equivalent of like a 20 amp, 240 volt circuit. And less than about a third of people are charging at level 2 or higher. It says level 3 on here at 12, it's not actually level 3. It's just really high level 2. Some folks, we wanted to differentiate people charging at like 15 kilowatts versus 7 kilowatts. So that's what that means, but it's mostly Rivian drivers. Which there are a lot of, actually. But the takeaway here is that most people are slow charging, which is a philosophy that we carry forward into our multi-family charging strategy.
What's this pink again?
The pink on the top left is what's called low power level 2. So it's a 20 amp, 240 volt circuit. So it's charging at about 3.5 to about 4.5 kilowatts of speed, depending on the size of the circuit. Less than a full level 2, but more than a level 1. Was that?
What was the full level 2?
A full level 2 is around 6.6 to a little over 7 kilowatts, depending on your voltage of the circuit. Yeah. Or you can put in, like the Rivian folks did, a 80 amp circuit, and then that's more like that's almost my entire home load, like my entire panel capacity. I mean. Okay, next slide, please. All right, now we're getting into fun. I only have a couple of these. I didn't want to throw too many in here, but I threw a couple of fun ones in. So we are now looking at meter data. So anytime you say AMI here, what this means is home level data, what the house is doing. And so what I'm doing here is I'm kind of simplifying things by combining all the smart charge groups together and all the rate modification groups together. There wasn't that much difference between them. And then looking at how this compares to the control group. So there's sort of some important takeaways here.
So what again is the AMI, just like, what does it stand for?
Advanced metering interface.
Okay, thank you.
I believe it's interface. Maybe someone who can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's advanced metering interface. It means their home loads and then we call AMI because it's that data set that we're working with here. So the main takeaways here are that what I was expecting to see was that you would have load moved out of the on-peak windows, and then that load has to go somewhere. So it would go up above the green baseline during off-peak windows. But what you'll notice here, especially in the smart charge group, is that the load is always below the baseline. The reason for that is there seems to be an effect of when you download, the people who download the app on average are using 20% energy overall than similar folks who did not download the app.
Oh, you did get rid of the app, you solved the problem.
Yeah, right. I think there's more of a confounding thing is that the people who download an app tend to be more energy efficient, have made better energy efficiency upgrades in their home, and are using Nests and other smart devices. They're the people who are interested in testing new stuff, have done that in other areas of their lives, and are using less energy. And they have EVs. We've eliminated solar and batteries to control for that. It's really that the people who are keen on participating in this type of program are very energy efficient. So it kind of muddies the analysis of it. Same thing for load mod. This is a little bit of confusing here. You can kind of see a little bit more of a dramatic effect. Oh yeah.
It makes me think, so people who have electrified, could you say this, are more energy efficient just by the nature that they're thinking about it all the time?
These aren't folks who have electrified their homes.
Necessarily.
I'm pretty confident that there's ways that we know because like their heating loads still show up as gas according to PG&E, according to their baseline gas rates. And this doesn't include anybody on the ELEC rate or anything like that. This is actually just people on the TOUC rate for now. So let's take a look at EV2A folks, actually on the next slide. These folks are exactly the same. So the folks who join, and what I mean by exactly the same, their load curves are almost exactly the same, except that the people who joined the experiment in the smart charge groups are using less energy at every single hour of the day compared to other EV2A customers as a baseline. And then for the rate mod group, I can't explain why some people are starting to charge their car at 1 a.m. There seems to be a large number of people who have set their timers to start charging at 1 a.m. I had no idea that was happening, but it was a constant thing that kept popping up in the data. But that's neat, that's cool, they didn't know that. And then for the rate modifications, it's very similar in terms of the results and was much more confusing to explain. So ultimately recommending not to pursue the whole confusing rate modification things. Really just the smart charging. And actually, if you go back one slide, Vanessa, one thing I failed to mention is one thing that we do see here, and it's a little bit better if I normalize it, but on the left, one of the real benefits that you'll see in smart charging is to smooth out those timer peaks. So if you were to control for the fact that they're using less energy, that window actually is a little bit smoother. And it's more dramatic in different ways of showing it. But by smoothing out everybody starting to charge at 9 p.m. in this case, and then move them around a little bit, it does make things a little better for timer peaks. Okay, let's jump to, I think, yeah, okay, so here are the overall takeaways. So telematics is definitely the way to go for a smart charging program. In theory, we could get up to 90% of all EV drivers because of the functionality of the system and the partner who we're using is EV Energy. They're adding more vehicles all the time, but right now they have 90% market share in terms of who can enroll. But recruitment is going to be a real challenge. You know, really realistic best case scenario would be 10% enrollment. If we were to email 50,000 EVs, you know, at most we would get a couple thousand, like 5,000 at most, unless we do some unreasonable cost in terms of an incentive. So somewhat negligible load shift again for EV2A. I mean, we get some for the NEM customers and some for EV2A during evening ramp up, but really not a lot. There is some load shift for TOUC customers. They would be the priority, but really the takeaway is the people that you want are the people who don't join. So that's who you want to get. And so we'll need to figure out better tactics to go after and recruit those folks. Especially on people on the default TOUC rate, because that's where the real potential is. So limited in the near term, but on the longer term, the timer peak mitigation is good, and that will be a good kind of medium term success, I think. Okay, so last slide. I think maybe I have one or two more. So we are going to go forward. We're planning to go forward with a planned program. It's probably not going to be the February board meeting. It'll probably be a little bit later because we're still figuring out what our long-term contract with EV Energy will look like. But the overarching concepts here is that this would be smart charging only. We're not going to tinker around with those confusing rate modifications. There are also really cumbersome to administer because we were doing on-bill credits. And we were processing hundreds of on-bill credits per month through Calpine, and I think I've used all my social capital with them. So we'd have to, you know, simplify that process, obviously. But smart charging is good anyway because it provides the best potential to smooth out those timer peaks when people would otherwise turn their cars on at midnight or 1 a.m. in the case of many EV2A customers, and smooth that out in the middle of the night. I'm proposing a 100 one-time incentive. It is a lot. It's a high one-time incentive for folks. We would give it to them a month after they've joined so that we would control for people who would join the app and then leave right away. Although retention was very high across the board. Hardly anybody left. If you joined, you stayed, which is good. So a one-time incentive should be fine. Because again, we didn't see a lot of people jumping ship. We'd be open to all rates. The EV2A and TUC focus was just for the experiment. So anybody and all rates can join. We wouldn't restrict it. If folks have solar, they're on a NEM rate, totally fine. We can control for all that stuff. In fact, EV Energy just received a huge CEC grant to do better stuff with people's like home solar and dynamic rates. And there's a lot of interesting things that they are very eager to tinker with in terms of optimizing more for renewable energy. And it's in soft launch now, to be honest, because it's open. We haven't widely promoted it yet, but folks can join. It's essentially in a non-promoted soft launch, but we would seek board approval on the full program and then be much more aggressive on marketing and promotion after that. And I think that's possibly my last slide. Yes, okay. So what happens next? So the pilot will formally conclude on February 29th. And then, as I mentioned, we're sort of in a soft launch now. The plan is to go get board approval next month, and then on the actual program concepts, and then the extension with EV Energy, which is the platform we're using, for 3 years is the thinking. So we give them a more long-term runway. And then we give all of our data to UC Davis, and then they're going to be doing their independent analysis with their grad students, and then hopefully in near-term academic timeframes, we'll be publishing a paper on our data and then publishing their findings. And that's it. Happy to take any questions or suggestions.
For Phil.
So when will this new program be starting after double approval, is that it?
Yeah, so it's a little awkward because the website is up. The reason for that is that we reconfigured our use EV rebate pretty rapidly in December to align with the new federal credits that came on board on January 1st. And we wanted to start promoting it to those folks. So if you walk into a dealership and receive a PCE and federal tax point of sale rebate right now, you're going to get information from us immediately on this program because we didn't want to lose those folks. So that's really the only extent of folks that we're promoting to now as part of the soft launch.
Let's say if I wanted to join.
You could join now. Yeah.
Well, you know, just to stay honest with it, I recall getting a couple of, I've had a TV since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I recall getting some of these and saying, well, I should join that program. Well, I never did.
Ah, you were one of the 17,000. Yeah, we're gonna have to nudge more. I mean, I would love to do a one-on-one focus group with you too. So getting more information from people who didn't join would be really interesting, but I expect to be very difficult because if you didn't join that, why are you going to join a focus group? Maybe a survey, but stuff like that would be actually very interesting. I suspect that many of the people who didn't join were dismissing it because they thought that they're already doing it. They're like, I already timed my charging. Like why would I need? I don't understand what the added value of downloading an app, syncing my car and doing all this because I already timed my charging. And we found it very challenging to explain all that in a 2-paragraph email. So we're definitely have to try different tactics for sure.
Well, then there's little weird dynamics. Like I think my wife and I talked and I said, why don't you do it? And she said, why don't you do it? And
okay. Gotta increase the cost.
Having thought about how you could message it to convey that what's the advantage here? How would you crystallize that?
So for For EV and NEM customers, I think we'd want to convey that this is better than they're already doing somehow. So this is where I'd be leaning on my marketing friends for some assistance here, but I think we would want to very succinctly say, like, get to the point and say, like, it's great that you're timing your charging. We can actually help you do it better. Which we didn't really tinker with in the messaging in this experiment. And for default rate customers, I think we have to lean in as hard as we can to the incentive, would be my thinking. But I'm very open to suggestions.
And when you say this will be better, it's.
Better for the grid.
Yeah, it's better for the grid. Is there a better for the customer? You know, are they gonna save money doing this?
They're already charging off peak, so there's really no opportunity to reduce their bill for EV2A and NEM folks.
So it's be a good citizen.
Be a good citizen, yeah.
And would there be an advantage? This is something we talked about in the work group a little bit, you know, and you just mentioned here, that a lot of people don't even know about the EV rate.
Yes.
Is kind of marketing that EV rate gonna be part of that, just to make sure more people know about that? And once they're on that, that might help accomplish a lot of the shifting that you're looking for anyway, because they'll have that greater incentive built in.
I think it has to be. I think we see a lot of difference between folks on the TOU rate and the EV rate. Obviously, they look very, very different. We've never done a campaign to try to get people to change their rates like that. But I think it would be pretty essential to this program to certainly rate optimize people and then get them to the EV rate whenever possible, because it does send a pretty strong signal.
But there has to also be education about the importance of shifting all their household usage
Yes.
out of that period too, because otherwise it will backfire, because they'll blow up everything during the period. Yeah.
It's pretty intimidating when you see, I think 59 cents is the on-peak rate now for EV2A. That's a high number.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Phil?
I'd just like to make a comment. Being on the work group, Phil has gone through this stuff with us several times, and I need to hear it like several times before it really starts gelling. But I can tell how much work he's done on the presentation, because this was so much easier for me.
I second that comment. This was much more succinct and it's tighter, definitely. Wait, any other question? Let's see, do we want to yeah, well, I think I need to ask for public comment first. Are there any public comments on Philip's presentation? Seeing any? Okay, and yes, do we want to make a recommendation to the board to continue the already started program?
Watch.
I would like to move to do that. We recommend the board adopt the program as outlined to continue it and to grow it.
Second.
Vanessa, did you hear the first and the second, or the motion and the second? It's
We
called
need a name. It's not gonna be called. it's not
Electric
gonna be
Vehicle
called.
Managed Charging Program.
Electric vehicle managed charging program.
Let's call it Jason's motion.
We will change the name.
While she's doing that, Philip, you had told us, because I'm in this working group too, that this really will make a much bigger difference when there are a lot more EVs to utilize the program. And what you're eventually going for in terms of the Loch Ness monsters and the ducks and all of that is that you want to eventually get it to where, well, how do you want to shift the load? What do you want the curve to look like?
It's a really fantastic question. So we want as much daytime charging as possible.
So solar, wind, clean power usage.
Yes,
Okay.
there's marginal benefit between moving someone from 10 PM to 2 AM.
Right.
When it comes to renewable improvement.
Right.
But moving them to 10 AM is huge. So as we extend our contract with EV Energy, we're certainly gonna be looking for feature enhancements. One that I have asked them to develop is kind of like a machine learning element that learns when people are plugged in at home during the day, but not charging because their batteries are full. So we charge them too early. And so we'll say, hey, we noticed that you're plugged in on Monday, you're not working, you're not driving on Monday. You know, like just for example, like identify those work from home folks. Because again, their car's plugged in, they're not going anywhere. And then try to send them a push notification in the app that says, can we change your schedule? Because right now you told us you need to be charged by 7 AM, which is the default. Maybe we can move you to 3 PM. And then further push more daytime charging. That's the goal.
This seems like it would be really important to PCE's attempt to provide the 24/7
Exactly.
energy. So this is a kind of a stepping stone to that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, rate load modification is a pretty important part of all
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yes, so this is our motion.
Is this? Your motion? I missed. the first
Seems a little
one.
creepy. What do you want the board to do? What's the enabling language you want them to approve the program?
They will, yes, we will be going to the board for approval on the program.
Let's add that. So approve the program and the implementation and growth, approve the implementation and growth of the electric vehicle manufacturing program.
So,
That's it. That was it. You got it.
We say how much we commend Philip in their recommendation. Can we stroke Philip? That's probably, David's gonna jump all over that, say that is appropriate in this setting. Any other suggestions for that? Okay.
Well, I'll throw one thing out, which we've talked about, working group, which is for managed EV, maybe not as much, but there are some communities that are trying to do more invasive, shall we say, controls of their customers, where they have programs where it's like, we'll turn off remotely your whatever it is and control it. I don't know how that would work, but I know we've looked at that before, and I think it might be interesting to see how that, if there's a way to flag people on that, or you scare people, and they're like, if you don't do this, we're gonna start controlling your charging, but your plan you just outlined is perfect. If you just get the push notification, that's the first step, right? So
Yes.
see if people will do it on the soft push, not the hard push.
Yes.
It seems like actually this would be a great opportunity, just as a side benefit of like, you know, if you go buy a car and you get a note from PCE saying, then you find out, well, who's PCE? You know, I mean, well, if you got the rebate, of course you'd know, but still, you'd know more about what they're doing, because a lot of people don't know. So, okay, so.
Let me ask one more.
Yes, yes.
Do we want to add a sentence that says, and encourage the public to sign up for the program? Or something like that? It's beyond just the board? Just to say that, is that helpful at all to you?
Well, it
See what
puts the onus on marketing or somebody to make sure something happens.
So I'd like to remove, or we already had a motion, I'm gonna cheat, David, I'm gonna move that we recommend the board of directors approve the implementation of the electric vehicle managed charging program.
Slow down.
That's what we already have.
That piece is reading up there.
And encourage the public to sign up for the app? For the
And
app?
just didn't sign up here.
Okay, encourage the public to sign up for the program or the app. Okay.
Well, we need something, there's some way to encourage the public. You just can't say, I don't think a lot of people are gonna pay.
By going to pce.com/.
Oh, boy. It's /EV charging.
Why don't we do that? By going to the peninsula-cleanenergy.com/EV charging.
Convey to the public though. Yeah, I mean,
That's the next step.
that was my question, is how, you know, we have put the onus on marketing or someone to do that. Now we're telling the marketing department what to do.
Well, let's pick that up next time. I just want to do this. We can force it later.
I can give you the actual.
I think David's about to say something.
I'm just, now I'm in all your heads. That's enough. For me.
It is managed short, that's right, you got it. That's it, they can. Managed short terms. I hear you, Michael, but we'll pick that up next time, we'll work on that.
All right, so,
That's my motion.
so we've changed the motion and
I reseconded.
resecond. Can we have a vote?
James Merrill, Diane Daly. Approved. Stephen Booker. Michael Coffin. Kathleen Goforth.
Aye.
Melee Hemuri.
Aye.
Alexander Pita. Gail Lee.
There she is.
There she is.
Hi, I was unmuted.
Margaret Lee. Jason Mendelson.
Aye.
Joe Shaw.
Aye.
Desiree Thayer.
Yes.
Robert Whitehair.
Approved.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
At the risk of messing things up, we may want to say just the Peninsula Clean Energy website, because what if we change the link? And also that's actually not the right URL.
Website, how about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the PCE website.
Okay, I so move.
That's, I'm gonna declare that change de minimis. It's
Thank
fine.
you.
No need.
Oh, you were gonna say something.
Thank you very much, team. And Phil, thank you so much. That was really interesting. Okay, our next agenda item working group reports.
Ooh, let me go. All right, building electrification, we got 2 presentations on it, refer to those. The Philip working group, we just got a great president there, refer to that, we're gonna keep working on those things. And then anybody else, we got, we'll do
Yeah,
ours.
the solar plus storage working group, we're making progress. Do we want to share anything briefly with them?
Okay.
The whole point of this is to identify exemplary programs and projects that other utilities are doing in the solar and storage. We've already identified quite a few interesting ones in some, as Kathleen found out, in some unusual places.
So each of those is a different community or something similarly situated to us. And then there's a deeper dive, this is the index. As you scroll through this is what we've been trying to research, and we're gonna give you a report probably next month. It'll be incredibly, you'll just see what other people are doing.
Just go up a little bit. A little more, got that group in there. Massachusetts, New York, North Carolina.
It'll be, and this is for that to use to sort of model what might work for us here based on what works for other people, other places, other practices. Found, Kathleen, did you share your comment about, maybe not, but about how it, you didn't know, whatever you want to say about it.
Well, how far behind we are? Is that
No.
what you're- yeah, no, it's actually been really interesting finding there's a lot of really interesting programs going on all over the country. I can just mention a couple of those to give you just a sense of what we're finding. In Massachusetts, Green Mountain Power, it's a Freeport electric utility. They're doing a couple of different approaches. They have done one program that is, they've established what they're calling resiliency zones. They identified areas, either an entire community or a section of a community that is very prone to outages. And also they kind of overlaid that with social vulnerability index data from the CDC. And so prioritize those areas to establish microgrids. And they would pair up locally generated clean energy with utility scale battery storage, and they're using mobile battery systems that are, it's like the back of a semi truck that's just completely full of batteries, called the Nomad Transportable Power System. So they don't have to do an investment in, constructing a whole facility. They can just drive this thing up and hook it up. The first one they did was in the town of Panton. They islanded, separated from the grid, a distribution circuit, paired up a solar facility with battery, They can fully power approximately 50 customers for 10 hours if they have a complete outage. They're looking to expand that to about 900 customers on the same circuit. And they've got a whole bunch of other projects underway. They're planning to add 3 more of these resiliency zones every year. Same utility also has a program that uses battery storage from like residential small business scale. And they've got sort of 2 options here. One is called Bring Your Own Device, where a customer gets up to $10,500 toward the purchase of a home battery and agrees to share their energy with Green Mountain Power. The customer can choose the battery from a list of eligible devices. They can choose their own installer. They can choose the amount of energy that they want to share with the program. And then they have a Powerwall program where Green Mountain Power will lease them a Powerwall or 2 Powerwalls actually for 10 years for a flat rate of $55 a month, or you get a one-time upfront payment of $5,500. And then you agree to share access to your stored energy with the utility during peak energy time. So it's just, they're doing kind of, these multiple approaches, and they've set a goal to eliminate outages by 2030 for every single one of their customers. So that's just one utility, one example. We're finding all these different approaches to microgrids. Some communities are just doing it as microgrids for their like municipal facilities and emergency centers, so that if everybody's house is out, there's at least places people can go. So they've got like the police station and the fire station and community centers all hooked up on a microgrid. So anyway, that's just a sample of what we've been
So
finding.
when will you guys give us your final report?
Within a couple of months.
Right.
Okay.
I think the takeaway from this is that it's a myth that all the energy innovation is happening in California.
Yeah.
In fact, in some ways, it's happening because of the problems we have with the IOUs. It's happening more interestingly elsewhere.
Great.
Yeah, small town North Carolina has a really interesting little microgrid program. I mean, it's places you never would expect.
Sounds like you guys are gonna teach us a lot. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Any other working group reports?
So the DEAI committee, we met twice, 2 weeks ago. We talked about language and technology access policies. And then we met again briefly today for like an equity framework for the organization. So we can have a more full report, but basically there's very, very early drafts of these policies and documents that Kirsten is working on, and she requested our feedback on some of those.
Great. Okay, you got some support. Anyone else? All right, are there any?
Since
public-
Daniel's gone, I think Daniel would have given the education one, but I guess I can do it since he's not
Okay.
here. So we met with staff mainly to talk about ideas for Los Banos that we can do in the schools, but also kind of just updating a little bit on what's happening in San Mateo. We're gonna meet again in 2 weeks, I think.
Second.
That's right.
Thank you, Desiree, for those reports. Are there any public comments on the working group reports? Now we'll move on to marketing and community liaison update.
Yeah, I've got an update for you all. On Monday, I'm going to be presenting to the executive committee about some proposals for updating the CAC selection process. Last year, we had 22 enthusiastic qualified applicants for the CAC, and we had to turn 17 of them down, which is a little sad because they really wanted to be on the CAC. It is not a great experience for them to apply and then to be turned down. So think how great you all are who made it. And so we are, and we've seen just like these numbers of applications double each year for the last 3 years. So I'm a little afraid to see what would happen if we opened it up again. So we're proposing to go back to last year's really deep pool of applicants this year. Prioritize those applicants and just go back to some of them, open up the full application only every 2 or 3 years. And that way we can fill openings quicker, not spend as much staff and board time interviewing folks every year and then just turning them down and have a better experience for the people we do interview. So any thoughts on those recommendations?
Yes,
All right.
okay, we get thumbs up.
Great.
We need to ask for public comments on that,
Oh,
or not. Your whole report's not over yet.
that's my report.
That's your report?
Any other report? Okay, that's our report.
I asked for public comment.
Sure.
Are there any public comments on Christian's report about the CAC selection process?
No public comments not heard.
Thank you. All right. Upcoming topics for discussion, Kirsten.
Okay, great. So, coming up. Actually. Okay, coming up at the board meeting in February is the recommendation to approve the turnkey electrification service vendors. So you've heard all about that today, and your recommendation will be presented. That's going to be the main ticket item coming up in February. And then in March, the board is scheduled to be discussing some approved changes to our net energy metering program. That's for solar customers. So we propose to bring that to you all in March to discuss first. Anything to add since you read that? Okay, so there you got it.
Okay, any thing from this group? Would anybody like to see us discuss anything in particular for our March meeting? I need to ask for public comment about that.
Sure.
Are there any public comments about upcoming topics for discussion?
We may want to do solar plus storage, we may want to wait. though.
Okay,
It's a
well,
future topic, but maybe not.
We'll give you a slot. We'll
Maybe
check
not,
in with.
maybe not.
All right. We'll just ask Jason and Michael what they think about that for next month. All right. All right, let's see here. Any committee members have reports? Anybody want to share something? Great. Thank you so much then. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
It'll almost be spring when we meet next.
Yes.